So I actually really like that, the dirtiness. It's almost like watching a movie from the 70s. Like I want to see, rather than like, an Avengers movie like Taxi Driver versus that. I like the dust and the scratches, and that's how I kind of feel about my art as well. Yep. I like that it's imperfect. I kind of like that there's, for me, it just kind of gives a little bit of character.
Welcome to another episode of the Creative Spin Podcast, and today I have a returning guest, Casey. Welcome back.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me back.
Oh, just as we started, there was a noise in the background, but I think it's gone. Okay. But like I was saying, welcome back.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
This is what happens in the Creative Spin Podcast. We just go with the flow. Things happen. Noises happen. It is what it is. We're not going to edit this shit out. It is what it is.
Yeah.
But 3 years have gone by, man.
Yeah. It's crazy.
I was checking the podcast you were in, and it was June 25th.
June 25th.
So it's going to be 3 years of 2019. Yeah.
Oh, 2019. So
no, 20. No, 3 years. Was it 19? Oh, no.
It must have been, because it was pre-pandemic.
Yeah, it was pre-pandemic.
Yeah,
it was 2019. Yeah. So what's been going on in these 3 years?
A lot. A lot of stuff, like life stuff, art stuff. I did the labels and art for there's a brewery in Milton called Third Moon Brewing.
So hold on.
Yeah.
I need to ask you one thing. The last time we were talking about other labels you did for another brewer. Now this one, has this become your thing now? Or like, how did this evolve?
Well, it's kind of funny. And it was all like with Collective Arts was kind of this weird thing. And I don't know if I described what happened last time when I got the email, because it had been a year and a half since I had submitted. And I got this email saying your piece has been selected to be on a can. And I was like, they got the wrong person. They accidentally emailed the wrong guy. So I said, oh, okay. Yeah. Can I see it? And then they showed me the thing. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's one of mine. Oh, crazy. Oh, okay.
You couldn't even remember anymore.
Yeah, I didn't. Like it had been so long since I had submitted.
So how was the process with them? They had like a contest for artists?
Well, it's an ongoing. It's constantly going.
Oh, it's constantly going.
Yeah. So every few months you'll see different Collective Arts cans for all their beers, the Ransack and Jam.
Oh, okay, so this makes total sense, because every time I go to the liquor store and I look at these cans, there's always so many different
it's always
artworks going on. Yeah.
So they've got that sort of model, but they're like a bigger company, so there's a lot of submissions. So when you submit, it's kind of like you just kind of throw it in there and cross your fingers, and then you wait and see. And that's basically how it works. You don't really know if you didn't get picked. So when I got picked, I didn't believe it because it had been so long.
Yeah.
And then I got to know them, and then I had done some of their merch as well.
Cool.
They had some of their shirts with my art on them as well.
Why is it that, do you know why they chose to go that path with their cans and helping artists to kind of, have a platform where they can have their artwork? Yeah,
I'm not sure, actually. I've never really talked to like the higher ups at Collective Arts, the people who created it. I've never discussed it with them.
If they're listening, we want to interview you guys to find this out, because I feel it's interesting that a beer company decided to help out artists like that.
Yeah.
It's an interesting concept, right?
And the thing is, I'm a big fan of Collective Arts, and they're good to their artists. They are. I've always been happy. I've actually gone in, and actually that's where we met. You and I was that they asked me to come in and do. They had a party, and they said, "Can you do a live drawing?" And I said, "Sure." I've done a few of those, and they've always been great to me. I submitted a piece and they put it on a shirt, and it's always been a really great experience working with Collective Arts. They're cool. They're really good to artists. So they really found the magic formula for that, because they're selling a good product and they're like treating their artists
and
really
it's
well.
so interesting because they kind of flip the coin on when it comes to branding a beer, because you know, before, all the beers have their quote unquote label logo, right, in which, you know, they usually stuck to it for years until they had like a little revamp, a little cleaning up or whatever, but nothing like crazy or major. They went the complete opposite, and it's like, no, every can is gonna have a different design. Like, nah, we're just gonna do that. I'm like, whoa.
Yeah, change the art on everything. And I do think they kind of started something really cool there, because if you go into an LCBO now and go in, or a beer store, all the craft beer selections, all like unique art. It's really
and I've also seen that bleed into the wine section as well.
That's
right.
So
the wine section was very traditional. It almost had that, you know, upper end style of design, and you still see those, but you're starting now to see, especially with the newer wineries, you start to see them kind of dipping into that creative side when it comes to their labels.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it seems to be working for them. And so when I started with Third Moon, it actually started with Collective Arts, because I was pretty excited when I got my can. So I was posting, and I
still have your can there.
Oh yeah,
I still have it at home.
That's awesome. And friends of mine were excited for me. And so what happened was, it was an old college roommate. He was like, "Oh, that's great," and he posted it on his Instagram. And Bebo from Third Moon, who they didn't have a facility or anything yet, saw my art and contacted me. And it was because my friend had posted my Collective Arts can because those two guys were friends. So
but here you go. Proof that social media is a powerful little tool, man.
And then I got an email from this guy Bebo, who I hadn't met, and he said, "Why don't you come on out and we'll give you a sense of what we're going to be going for with our beer, and then see if you want to do a few labels." And I said, "Yeah, sure." I went out and met with them. Chris and Bebo, just the best guys.
And was this before pandemic or after?
This was before, because what had happened was we were starting to get going, and the guys were getting a facility together where they could actually brew properly, because when they first started to brew beer, they're doing it like at home in their garage or in their basement or whatever. But they needed a real facility, and they kind of got screwed by the pandemic, because it hit,
like many people,
because they were just trying. They wanted to open a tap room, and they wanted to do all this stuff to have income, and then the pandemic just steamrolled all of that. Fortunately, they survived, and they're still going. And I think the amount of labels I've done for them, it was funny because I started with them because they said, "We like your art. Would you do a few?" And I was kind of thinking of it the same way as a Collective Arts. Be like, "Yeah, sure, I'll do a couple and that'll be fun." I think I've done like around 300 labels.
God damn, that's a lot.
They're not 100% unique. It's a lot like, flavor differentiations. It's like, it's that label, that stout with, chocolate and
gotcha. So it's
cookies,
different variations.
There's different. Yeah. So they're not like, it's not like 300 different drawings.
It's almost like an NFT kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
There's a little, the guy with the glasses, now without the glasses kind of thing.
Exactly.
Okay, gotcha.
So, I think they've at this point they've used about 60 of my drawings for their labels, and they've been wonderful to work with, because it's just like a dream, because I can kind of do whatever. Like, there's a lot of, I've worked with bands and stuff, and other people, and people kind of tend to have a very specific idea of what they want, and you're trying to just put your spin on their idea. Whereas Third Moon is just kind of like, "What do you have?" And I'm like, "How about this?" And they say, "That's cool." And they throw it on a label.
But when you're actually drawing now, I'm guessing the thought process as you're drawing, excuse me, or you're trying to gather your thoughts, is there an additional pressure now? Because, you've given them a lot of artwork that they've chosen that they like. Are you pressured into keeping it under the same line, like psychologically? You know what I mean? Because you might be afraid of, I've been doing it this way.
Yeah.
But what happens? I have this crazy idea, but can I go that way? Will they accept it? Does that run through your mind?
A little bit, but I actually don't really worry about it too much. I kind of, and I've had plenty of discussions with the guys where I'm like, we've got like a little Google Drive where I just put everything. And I say, and I've told them, I'm like, I'm just going to throw everything at you and you just take what you want.
That's awesome.
So, and there are a couple labels that they're like, no, we're not going
cool,
there.
Which is fine. It's good.
Which is totally fine. And I've told them that. I'd be like, listen, I've been, in the design industry for quite some time. I'm used to getting rejected. You guys, sometimes I think they feel bad about asking me to.
Art is subjective, right? Art is subjective. So.
Yeah. And I think they sometimes feel bad about saying no. And I'm like, guys, it's fine. Like, you can tell me to change things. It's cool.
Yeah. And ultimately, they're going to be putting it on their product. So, they have some say on it.
Yeah.
But I was just kind of thinking, because even though they kind of give you, liberty to do whatever you want, I think, especially like I'm thinking about myself as an artist, like you kind of, that thing keeps lingering in the back of your mind. But if it's the way you're saying, then that kind of frees you up a lot.
Yeah, it does. And and it's been really, really cool because I'll go in, and actually today's their 30-year anniversary, so I'm actually heading out there after this. But when I go in, because they've actually had me do murals at their brewery and their tap room and stuff like that, and it's kind of neat to go in and meet the Third Moon customers. And people are telling me, they're like, we because the guys always have leftover stickers of the labels, and we always come in and we make sure we get all the stickers because we love your stuff. So it like really it opened up this new world for me as far as like exposure that I wouldn't have had, because I'm not too much of a self promoter as far as my art goes, because when I do stuff, I'm kind of I'm doing it for me. I'm doing it like I'm doing because I want to do it. So, and I don't want that really interrupted.
I guess, and in a weird way, I think that's the best way to be, because you're not, again, I keep saying pressured, but it's kind of the thing. If you're just doing it for yourself, you're not pressured into doing A or B. You just do you. You know what I mean?
Well, and because doing that kind of freed me up too, because I think for a while I was trying to do things that I thought other people would like. And that was really kind of restrictive. And I just found when I let that go, and it was like, and still to this day, if I start into a drawing, I'm always telling myself, it doesn't matter if this sucks. Like,
run the thought process when you start a drawing. Is it how do you begin a piece? Is it something that you got inspired by something you saw, or something someone said to you?
Yeah,
like, what's your inspiration?
So it's a lot of that. It's a lot of it comes from all different things, and a lot of the time my favorite ones are the misheard or the like, I think I saw something, and when I look at it, it's completely different, but I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. Like, and then I'll do a little sketch of what the thing I thought I saw, or I'll listen to a song lyric and I'll check the lyrics. I'm like, no, I got that wrong. That line is this, but I thought they were saying this. Like, what does that lyric look like? Like that lyric that I didn't really hear that I thought I heard. Or sometimes it's just like music, like lyrics that I've heard that just, drums up some imagery in my head. So most of the time I've got piles of these sketchbooks with these like thumbnails that are about this big.
So just the idea, it's just like jot down the idea.
It's like 5 seconds. It's just, and I don't think any of them would make sense to anyone, but I know what it I know what I was thinking
You know
when
what?
I
Get
drew it.
all of those little 5-second little drawing sketches and just put them into like a big poster. I think that would look cool. Yeah, get that going.
I like that. Maybe a book. But yeah, and sometimes, and I do these little sketches endlessly. I do them every day.
Are you analog or digital when you're doing that?
Oh, I'm analog. Like I've got like books,
It's just books
pencil
all the
and
way.
paper. Yeah.
You don't use iPads or anything of the.
I've got a little like a pad.
Oh, okay.
But it's kind of like, my screen's here and I'm drawing
Got
here.
it. Yeah, I use one of those too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're great for certain things. But most of the time I'm like, I don't do a ton of digital art, but I do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I've got like this collection, and not everything gets turned into a real piece, but it's helpful to have them. And sometimes I'm like, okay, it's time to start a new one. I'll just flip through these books. If something catches my eye, I'll kind of circle it. I'll mark the page, and I'll go through the rest. And most of the time I'll have like 5 or 6 that I found interesting, and I'll just kind of like reduce those into another collection, and then by deduction, then I'll start, not this one, not that one, not that one, and it's between that one or that one, I'm gonna do that one, and it's just kind of like, and then I'll just start.
Interesting. I love hearing every artist's different design process, because I think everybody has their own little way of doing things. I was very much an mostly analog guy. I would love to just draw on paper. And then somewhere along the way, I kind of became more of a digital designer. And especially when I was designing ideas for clients or logos or whatever, I used to start on paper. And now I often see myself just going straight onto Illustrator.
Oh, really?
Because I don't know. And I can't really pinpoint the reason why.
Yeah.
But the flexibility, I think I know what it is. It's the damn undos,
Yeah.
Because when you're drawing on a piece of paper and you make a mistake and you gotta erase it, or if you're doing it by pen, you're done.
Yeah.
You gotta go into another one. So the ease of undoing a mistake, I think that's what kind of just got me in there.
Well, and I've run into that myself. I remember, like, I've had that thought of, oh no, like drawing something and be like, oh, I have to undo. Oh, I can't undo. And just that realization is like, oh yeah, that doesn't apply.
You got Command Z on this.
Yeah.
But I also found now a nice little medium point there with Procreate. I've been drawing a lot with that program, and the pencil on the iPad actually feels so good.
Yeah.
But I still prefer the feel of the pencil on the paper.
Yeah.
I don't think anything beats that. Just being able, as good as the pencil is on the iPad, it's not the same thing. It's still not the same thing.
I've been really curious about trying out iPad stuff. I just haven't made the financial commitment to actually.
Well, there's definitely a financial commitment to that one. But you know what? Honestly, when it comes to art, I think we should always go with what you're more comfortable with. Like in terms of media, it's not just simple pen and paper or pencil and paper. You use other material as well. I think we touched on this topic the last time, but let's go over that again, because I found it very interesting and I got myself looking into it.
Oh yeah,
I got into a little bit of a rabbit hole at that time. I remember.
Sorry, which one are you?
You do the edging.
Oh yes, the clay boards.
Exactly,
yeah, that was one too. Well, and that all came from there's this artist named Daniel Danger. And I remember looking at his art and just being like completely, I'm like, how does he do it? Because he uses the scratch board, which is, you lay the ink on, and normally when I would draw with pen and ink, you're filling in the shadows, and this is more like carving out the light.
Yeah, so it's black. You start off with black, and then as you're edging it out, you see the white.
You're revealing the highlights. So it's like this reverse shading. But I didn't know that existed when I would see these Daniel Danger drawings. So I would look at them and I'd just be like, is he going around like every like little piece of like, how is he doing that? And it like there was probably like 2 years where I just didn't understand. And I said, maybe he's using a white pen on black. Maybe he's doing that. And then I found his Tumblr page, and I just went back and back and back. And I found this thing where he actually described his process using Clayboard.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God. And I ran out and I got some. And, you know, I had a few fails.
I'm going to guess so. Because your brain literally has to switch over. Because now it's almost like you're drawing in the negative space.
Yeah.
Or no, not really. I don't know. Explain it. You know better than I do.
Yeah. So, well, that was the thing. Because the very, very first one I ever tried, I wasn't really using the Clayboard the way I had seen Daniel Danger using the Clayboard.
Okay.
I was just drawing the way I draw onto the Clayboard, which was just black on white. And that's it.
So you were reversing instead of black on white, you're just doing the white on the black.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Well, because there's Clayboard and there's Scratchboard, and Clayboard's white and Scratchboard's black. So it's like Clayboard is basically uninked Scratchboard. So you could start off either way.
Okay, so I didn't even know that one.
Yeah. So I actually like the Clayboard because I can lay the black on myself. And it makes it easier for me to map things out. I've done a few drawings where I had one of the lighthouse. I did this one lighthouse that was a good example of that because I had these layers. There's a lighthouse, but then it was in these layers of clouds. So I'd fill in all of like this layer, like section of clouds, and then I would just scratch out all the highlights. And then I would fill in more and then scratch out the highlights. And I just kind of did it in steps like that. Because if it was all black, like I need a kind of a map to understand how to, or like even just remember where my sketch was. And what I found was I didn't because for most of my life, I was always filling in the dark. I was never bringing out the light.
Yeah.
And what I found since I discovered Clayboard was that's my thing. That's what I want to do. That's what I like doing. I'm going to keep doing that. And it's just that reverse. Once your brain kind of changes over and you're now thinking about the highlights rather than thinking about filling in the dark, for me at least.
And has that helped you with the normal drawing? Like thinking that way, that thought process that you have?
Well, it's kind of interesting. So what I found, going back to Third Moon, I've done some murals for them. And one of the murals I did was originally a Clayboard drawing where I was scratching out the highlights. But this was reversed because it was a light surface. So I had to switch over again to do it the other way. So I was kind of like, oh my God. Because I remember drawing this with a Clayboard and I was, it's a skeleton, like a half buried skeleton. And I remember the bones and the skull and all the little highlights. I remember how my brain oh, there's not enough highlight there. Just scratch out some more. And then I had to
reverse everything,
go backward and be like, oh no, I have to think about the shadows now. I can't think about the highlights. I have to think about the shadows.
That's so interesting.
And it really, it actually kind of screwed me up. And I ended up kind of going the way I asked them because the wall was gray. I'm like, do you have any more of this gray paint? And they're like, oh yeah, we've got some. I was like, great. So I was able to kind of do it the way I would do a scratchboard. So I could fill in the dark and then I would just use their light gray because I found that filling in the dark, I just wasn't getting the feel of the Clayboard, which is very rigid. I find because I do try to do graphite stuff, which is you can have nice soft tones and stuff, but the Clayboard's very sharp and so even
lines. The tool that you use, is it because it's scratching the surface, right?
Yeah.
So it's an actual tool. It's not like a pencil, but is it fine? I'm not.
There's a variety of little nibs you can get for them. There's a very nice precise thin one. There's all sorts of, and when I started, I just got them all. And I just found what worked for me. And I've got out of the 5 or 6 that I bought, I use 2. I don't even touch the other ones. It just these are this is how I know, because it's actually more like going back to how I would draw with just pen and ink.
Gotcha.
It's like a thick one and a thin one. That's all I want.
Yeah.
I don't need all this fancy stuff, all this weird, like, you know, the weird shapes. I don't need that. When I'm drawing stuff, I actually find that for me, I'm a pretty simple guy. So I like all the other new things. I just, it just complicates it.
I don't know if the same thing is for you. And now you said simple, and I kind of thought about the way I'm doing things nowadays. It's like I've decided to, the more I can simplify any of the stuff I do, the better.
Yeah.
You know, I think my age of, you know, I think in my 20s, it's like, how many more tools can I get? How many more things can I get? Mm-hmm. And it's like, it got to a point where it's just a distraction from the real thing.
Yeah. And
it takes away from the creativity because you're so concerned about what tool or what pen or what pencil or whatever to use that you're not focused so much on the artwork itself anymore. You're more, if I use this tool, will it blend in with this one? And, you know, I feel like now I'm kind of going backwards as well. Like not backwards, but I'm going back to the simplistic way of doing things.
For sure. Yeah.
Simple, one tool, one piece of paper, and that's it.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, and that's, you know, you kind of go through phases where you want to experiment and try different things. Like I've tried like every type of drawing, painting, doohickey you can possibly get. And then I just found myself then I just kind of realized that this is what I do and this is my thing. Makes me happy, and I'm just going to do this.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, I'll go back and try something new, but I won't stick with it. That's what I find. I find that I'll do.
You always go back to.
Yeah. Even though like Clayboard was kind of that, but it just turned into because it was just right for me and how I draw.
Cafe Brasiliano, where the coffee is truly amazing, but that's not all they have to offer. Their sandwiches will make your taste buds dance. Every bite is packed with flavor and freshness. Trust me on this one. The vintage style of this place isn't just limited to the decor. They even have a marketplace of quality products that you can browse while you're enjoying your coffee. Perfect to meet your friends or make new ones. Cafe Brasiliano is the perfect place for coffee, sandwiches, and a unique shopping experience. If you're in Toronto, don't forget to swing by at 80 Miller Street.
Are you using Clayboard for the designs that you're doing for this new brewery?
It kind of depends. Like some of them are, some of them aren't. It was funny because the guys have used so much of my art that I was like running out of labels. So I went back and I like old sketchbooks and I was like, okay, this one, and I'll like scan it and I'd be like, new label.
Take me through the process of like the tech side of things. So let's say you do one of those artwork. So you just said you scan. So you scan them, you bring them into what, like an Illustrator or Photoshop, and then you do you do touch-ups on it? Like what's the work process and usually?
Usually for that sort of stuff, especially since like I was saying earlier, how I've done 300 labels, but a lot of those are kind of like repeats.
Yeah.
So they've got one that's a stout and it's got this like weird creature on it. So I'll go in to Photoshop and they'd be like, this one's going to be like kind of like Starbucks. Can you make them look like a Starbucks customer? So most of the time, actually, it's easier for me to draw on paper and then scan it and then put it into Photoshop and then just like
tweak it within
Photoshop. But most of the time I'm starting on, I still start with paper and then I scan and then
Interesting. I actually thought you would be going into Illustrator, to be honest with you.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's funny because
the style of your drawings could possibly work well in a vector file.
Yeah, well, it's funny. Like, I think
is it because you're more of a Photoshop guy? Is that
I do like photo? I love Photoshop.
Yeah.
And I love photoshopping stuff. I love the vector stuff, but I did find that the guys, there was just something about like the texture, like, because I've tried with Photoshop and stuff like that in Illustrator as well, to make it look like something I've drawn on paper. and I just can't quite get it. So I actually really like that. The dirtiness. It's almost like watching a movie from the 70s. Like I want to see, like
easier on Photoshop.
Rather than like, an Avengers movie, like Taxi Driver versus that. I like the dust and the scratches. And that's how I kind of feel about my art as well. Yep. I like that it's imperfect. I kind of like that there's, for me, it just kind of gives a little bit of character. And so I most of the time I'll scan, bring it into Photoshop, straighten it up, touch up whatever I need to touch up. Sometimes I'll even color them. It depends on the vibe of the label and kind of the vibe that I'm kind of just the vision, whatever the vision I have is. Because sometimes the things are as simple as a color, like multiplied over top. But sometimes it's really intricate where I'm going in and I've got my tablet out and I'm going in and actually drawing other things and I'm coloring certain stuff. It's all over the place.
It'd be interesting. I'm curious now to see like a design that you've scanned in and then the end result. I think that would be an interesting one to see.
Well, actually, some of the funniest stuff too that I've never showed. Well, I think I've showed a few close friends, but with a lot of drawings, a lot of the stuff I'm not just coming up with at the top of my head. I need a subject.
Yeah.
So either myself or I'll get my fiance to pose for the drawings.
Yeah.
And those are always interesting because most of my subject matter is fairly dark. I did this one drawing where it was 3 skeletons kind of like fighting and they're kind of like slitting each other's throats and stuff like that. But I can't just I couldn't just do that off the top of my head.
So you need to have that visual person just going at it or.
So we're in my fiance, well, at the time she was my girlfriend and she had her own place and we were in her place and I had her and I just sat in the same spot and I said, okay, you're the guy on the ground now. So kind of do this and like go like that. And like I took a few shots. I'm like, okay, now you're the middle guy that's kind of attacking that guy. So she would get up and I'd snap a few shots and then now you're the guy that's behind that guy. And then she would do that. And then I just took all those photos and I mashed them up and I put them into Photoshop. Like I shopped them pretty well. And when you see the image, it's pretty funny because it's Victoria 3 times wearing, sweatpants.
And I'm guessing these are pictures that will never see the light of day.
I don't think so. But that was the thing, and that gave me my visual reference.
Yeah.
And there's some stuff that I've done, and it's funny. I did one.
I totally understand because I've been wanting to get those. There's those little models that you can buy that they can kind of turn into, they're very articulate and even fingers, you can just position them because you do need a reference, man. When you're, no matter how, I don't know, I'm probably talking about myself now, but no matter how good I can be drawing a human body or expression or hand, my biggest kryptonite is hands.
I was just going to say that. I was going to say hands.
It's always, since I remember to draw, I've always been stumped with the hands. I never know what to do, even though, you tell me to draw a hand like this. Yeah, sure, no problem. But now when it just becomes a headache for me. Yeah. So I need to be seeing something just the same way as you were explaining there.
And I found, the latest, I did a drawing, it was kind of like this Grim Reaper-y sort of thing and just kind of did it really quick, but it was a fun little drawing. But even that, I used a reference because I found that I'd be like, oh, whatever, it's not even real. Who cares if it, but it's so much better when I've got a reference.
Yeah.
So I took a picture of myself in this weird, it's just me with my headphones on, like kind of like that. But it really works for the drawing and it really helped me do it right.
I fully understand that. No, 100%. I love hearing these hacks because now I don't feel as weird.
Yeah.
I'm not the only weird guy taking weird pictures to try to draw over it because, sometimes you feel like, man, this is kind of crazy.
Yeah. I've done that. It was funny. I remember when I was on my own in my apartment and I did this one drawing of this kind of ghostly figure. and no one was home, fortunately, because I just set up my camera with a timer, and then I had to run down the hallway and throw a bed sheet over myself and kind of like do that. And then I take the bed sheet off and be like, no, take that again. And so it was just me running back and forth because
the struggles of an artist, man. If you guys only knew what we go through.
Yeah. But they're always funny. And I've actually kept all of my Photoshop concepts because they just amuse me. And maybe I'll show people someday, but it's all, they're all Victoria and I just posing weird. Like there was one, I just did this one of a Valkyrie, like killing a demon. So what I had to do was I had to get Victoria in the pose for the Valkyrie and the demon, but I didn't want, because as much as I try to change it up, I still tend to kind of lean towards whatever the person's face looks like. So I ended up taking a picture of myself and photoshopping it on Victoria's body.
So it didn't look like
so at least the face looked different for me when I was drawing. So at least the reference was a bit different. And I had to take pictures just of our faces with different like expressions. I'm like, no, you're like angry and you're like, ah. And I had to like take a picture of myself wincing but it just helped make the drawing better and just made the process.
It'll be fun going through your
more
camera
efficient.
roll.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah. All you see is his face.
Yeah. And it's super weird.
Different expressions.
Yeah. My face on my fiance's body. It's super weird. But it just it worked for me to get the finished
If
product.
you ever lose your phone, you're going to be in trouble. People are going to, can you come to the, no. Yeah. It's always interesting, like I said, to find out because everybody has their own way of working. Now, when it comes to what you've been doing, aside from the whole beer labels and all that, have you been doing any other type of art?
Yeah, actually, I really got it, especially what helped, and actually kind of what we were talking about earlier about financial commitments and stuff like that to trying a new thing. What happened, my fiance, one of my fiance's best friends, her mother had passed away, I think about 10 years back. But her mother was a sculptor. And I remember I go into art stores and a brick of clay is like $30. That's kind of I don't even know if I'll be good at it. I'll just draw, and I just kind of but Tasha said to me, she said, my mom, she passed away, but she had all this clay. She's like, do you want it? I said, oh, sure. And that kind of freed me up to kind of be like, oh, I'll try this. And so that was the thing where I definitely during the pandemic, I started to sculpt. And it was kind of similar to the clay board thing. I remember I was I made an armature. I was like, oh my God, this is taking so long, covering it in that first layer of clay. And the moment that happened, it was this weird kind of monster thing. I put the eyes in and it looked kind of cool. And I was like,
it came to life.
This is a thing I can do. And then that started me. And then I just started sculpting like crazy. I was sculpting more than I was drawing, especially throughout the pandemic. And I was watching videos on YouTube, hours of videos of other people sculpting. And eventually it got to people who were making dioramas. And I was kind of well, I'm not going to do that. But then I saw enough videos. I was kind of I could do that. So I kind of combined sculpture, and there's lots of YouTube stuff, but just making my own things. Like my own kind of weird visions, stuff that would normally be a drawing. I made 3D. I started to do that. It's more challenging. I'm not as good of a sculptor as I am an illustrator, but it really excited me.
It's a curious thing because I've also been wanting to get myself into that, and I'm kind of in that same boat where, it's not a cheap little adventure for you to start off, and it's almost like a catch-22. It's you don't want to spend the money on something you don't know if you're good at, but you don't know if you're good at until you start.
Yeah, exactly.
So you're like in that limbo, and that's where I've been in that limbo. Because again, I have also followed a lot of guys on YouTube. There's one artist from Australia, Jazza. I don't know.
Oh
if
yeah.
He dabs a lot into modeling as well, like once in a while. And I've seen his stuff, and I'm like, damn, I wish I could start doing that. Like, it looks fun, you know what I mean? It looks rewarding at the end too, like hella rewarding. And I'm like, I gotta start. So this might be the little push I needed to go into the art store and grab some.
Well, yeah, and it's product. Like. It's kind of crazy, like, because I found too, as far as learning how to do something you've never done before, I actually take little things, because I remember I'm like, I don't know how to make an armature. How do I make an armature? I'd watch some YouTube video, and I'd watch one guy do it, and I was like, okay, I got to do it like that. And then I'd find another channel, and another guy did it another way, and I was kind of like, oh, okay, that's interesting. And then I found myself kind of like taking from all these different sources, and I'm like, this is how I do it, but it's a little bit of like all of these other things.
Okay, so you would advise, like, let's say I want to start this next week. You would advise me to, before I even start, to just go into that deep hole on YouTube and just search it out and just try to find as many different people as possible.
Yeah. Depending on like, what you want to do. I'm very much into like spooky, like, fantasy sort of stuff. So I found guys that did stuff like that and stuff that I was really interested in. And I think I've got like 10 different YouTube things I just found, like, I found one guy, and then in the side, it's like, oh, there's a different guy. Yeah, I'm going to see what that guy does. And then that guy does it a little bit different. But there's these little things that, like, you can take one thing from one guy that just, like, kind of completes the puzzle for how you're going to do something.
And what about the tools? Like, are there a lot of tools that you need to use for that? Or?
Well, that's the thing. The thing is, when I finally got into this, I'm like, this is going to be something I do. I went nuts and I bought everything.
Did you go back to using two again?
Yeah, exactly. That's 100% what happened. I bought everything. I tried everything. I used two things. Like,
that's interesting.
Especially with sculpting, I'm like, oh yeah, I need that for this because I saw that guy on his YouTube channel doing it that way. I got to do that too, but then, and then it just doesn't really work for me. And I find I get the results I want to get using these two things. But
keep it simple, right?
But
that's kind of the rule.
But I did go nuts, and I watched all sorts of videos. I bought all sorts of stuff. I've got like 12 different kinds of glue, like, because I'm like, oh, that guy uses that glue for that. Oh, I should get that too. So I've got quite a collection of tools.
And are these, do you end up painting them at the end?
Yeah.
You do? Okay.
Yeah, and that's actually gotten me back into painting, because for a while, especially with claymore, it was like black and white,
Yeah, it's
done.
almost like there's a...
Yeah, and, I'd maybe color it in Photoshop, but I wouldn't touch paint.
But there's always a correlation between, even no matter what medium you're using, from, sketchboard to clay to Photoshop, your theme kind of stays the same. You still keep yourself on that same theme, or are you one of those artists that I have these 5 different themes that I play with, or it's like how do you work it?
I think they're all kind of very similar, and it's kind of whatever strikes me in the moment is kind of how I work. I kind of go off that, like, because sometimes it's I've done a couple of things, especially with the modeling and the diorama sort of stuff, where I'm making miniatures. I'm just making like replicas of things. Like the first year of the pandemic, I made my family has a cottage, and I made like a little miniature of the outhouse because I thought that would be funny, and it turned out pretty good, and it looks cool. pretty similar to the actual thing. So, like, and I was inspired to do that, and that has nothing to do with, like, that's just a real thing that exists.
Yeah.
But then other times I'll go and just do a weird, like, I did this weird, like, creature dragging the head of another even bigger creature. And it's kind of, you know, maybe I watched a movie that like got my brain going in a different way.
It's interesting to see that, you know, since we last spoke, you still doing the same style. It's cool to see that you kept yourself on what you love to do, and you're just kind of like just getting better and better at it.
Yeah, I'm trying to
more comfortable, I'm guessing.
Yeah, definitely more comfortable. I tend to stick with the same themes, but yeah, it's been great, and it's such a wonderful little hobby to have.
So if you were to talk to 15-year-old Casey now, and you had the opportunity to have Casey sitting right beside you, what would you tell him?
I'd tell him to try other things sooner, like, because I think I would have benefited from just kind of getting going, like just getting to know the materials and stuff like that. But I would kind of tell him, because 15-year-old Casey was, well, not like 43-year-old Casey, but I'd be like, stick to your guns, man. You're okay. Just but try harder. I think that's what I'd be like. Try harder and try. But when it comes
to art, what would you tell him? Like, do this, do that. You should focus more on this, focus more on that. Like, what would be?
Yeah, I don't know.
Experiment.
Well, the thing is, like, and what's really benefited me, and as far as like having satisfaction from doing art, is just do what you want to do, because that's like the most satisfying thing. So I'm trying to think of what 15-year-old Casey would want to draw. I'd be like, draw that, like, because even like now, that's what makes me happy, is like, and that's what keeps me going, is the fact that I can, there's no pressure to be good. I would definitely tell them that. I'm like, don't worry about screwing up. Don't worry about it being good, like in a weird sort of way. Just do it.
Yeah. You know, when I ask these questions to people, I always think to myself, it's a double-edged question, because if you were to have the opportunity to go back in time, let's say we found a DeLorean and we went back in time and talked to 15-year-old Casey, and you gave him that advice, I don't think it would work.
Yeah.
I don't think, not only for yourself, anybody, we could go back in time, I don't think it would work, because I honestly believe that we are who we are today because of all of the things that
because of the journey,
up.
Right? Yeah.
It's the journey rather than the shortcuts.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and you know, now that I have kids, I always kind of think about that. Mm-hmm. I always try to help them out into giving them a shortcut. Don't do that, because you're just going to waste your time. Mm-hmm. But then there's that other side of my brain that says, let them screw up.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Let them screw up, because that's how they're going to learn.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh,
so
exactly.
That's why I always say this question. I'm always curious to find out what people answer, but I always have that in the back of my mind that it's a double-edged question, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Because you know, when I think of when I was younger, it's like, and what comes out now, it's all part of it. It's all you know, like, yeah.
Right?
So like, you know, there's not much I'd want to change as far as like where I was artistically when I was 15, and because I was going through what I had to go through to get to where I am now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you heard it here first, kids. Do you?
Yeah, you do you. I think that's the most important thing, because I especially when I talk to people about art and they're like, "Oh, I suck at it. I'm no good." I'm like, "Who cares? Just do it."
Yeah.
I'm like, if you're interested in it, you
100%.
should just do it. Like, it doesn't matter.
Have
like,
fun.
Yeah, and just have
fun. Enjoy what you're doing. That's what I always say. It's like, you need to enjoy it. Don't look at it as a project, as a job. And that's why, like, going back to what you were saying, you just put the images onto a Google Drive folder and let them pick. That's amazing, because now you've given yourself permission to just draw whatever. So you're drawing it out of the heart, and you're just doing what you love to do. You're not so much concerned about, is this going to be chosen or not? You don't really, you don't really care. Not in the sense that you're not putting it down. It's just that you're not concerned in the sense that you're doing what you love.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, the things I'm doing, I'm doing what I think like looks cool, what I think works. And it's kind of like, you know, if Third Moon dropped me and I lost all my followers tomorrow, I wouldn't stop what I'm doing. I'm still going to do it. Like, it doesn't, you know, those other things are great and they're wonderful to have.
Yeah.
But it's not why I do it.
Exactly.
I just do it because I love to do it. And that's
the most important
why I will continue to do it no matter what happens. I will never stop.
No, I think you're doing it the right way. That's the way every artist should be doing it. And what about music? I know you're somewhat of a musician as well.
Yeah.
Well, you've been still keeping up with that, or what's
Not
going on
as
with
much. Well, it's funny because my fiance we had this like little band because she's a singer.
Oh, okay.
But it was like a cover band. And it was different from what I used to do because I was in a band for 10 years, signed to a record label and stuff like that, toured, did all that sort of stuff. And then I found when I was presented by other people with that sort of idea to do it again, I was kind of like, no.
Yeah,
I did it once.
You had checked that box already, right?
So it's kind of as far as music goes, we still play. But we haven't played a show or anything like that. And it's fun to play shows and I like playing it, but I am not doing that again.
You know, there's an age for everything.
Yeah,
and sometimes being on the road all the time, it's not an easy life.
No,
you know?
it was
I can imagine, not that I've ever been on the road, but I can imagine it's not easy to,
No, and you know, you're crammed into a van for, you know, like 80% of the time. And it's fun when you're young for sure. Loved it. Had a great time. And if I went back in time, I'd do it again.
Keep going. Right?
But would I do it now? Oh God, no. Oh, it's too much.
Time changes.
Yeah. But it was great. No regrets.
Now in your 40s, what's the biggest difference when you look back to now in your 40s? What's the biggest thing that you do in your life now that you wouldn't expect to be doing at this point? In the creative side.
In the creative side? Well, you know what? It's kind of funny. I think when I was younger, I was like a little more embarrassed to show my work. And if it was weird and fantasy based or horror or scary or stuff like that, I would be embarrassed. I find that being older, I don't care anymore.
Right?
That's what's changed me. And if people are like, oh, like if they think it's childish or if they think it's disturbing or what, I'm like, it doesn't matter to me. Like I just don't care.
It's so true.
Because I'm just going to do this. And if you don't like, that's fine.
Yeah. And this is a very common answer for, I feel like the 40s.
Yeah. Yeah.
Once you step after that 40, that's it. You're like, I don't give a crap. Whatever you think. It's okay.
Yeah.
I'm good with myself. That's fine.
And it's funny. Like one of my, and it was like such a good burn on me. I'm like, it was so perfect. It was one of my parents' neighbors had come over and I was drawing the things I draw. And she had come over and she looked at it and she was like, oh, you know what you should do? You should draw something that people would like. And it was she didn't mean to burn me, but it was such a good burn. I was just like, that was so funny.
Great perspectives,
like, Yeah, it was great. Like, I just love that.
That's so funny. So, Casey, I mean, keep drawing things that people will like.
Yeah, I'll try.
Thank you so much for being here, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me again, man.
It was good. I think we can't let another 3 years pass.
Yeah, for sure.
We need to do what I'm going to try to do now is yearly updates with all of my guests and
nice.
Try to see what they've been up to and what they've been doing. So let's see. Probably next year you'll come on over.
Sounds great. I'm in.
Who knows, right? Okay, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Cool.